The power of inner freedom is one of the most profound truths we can embrace in our lifetime. It teaches us that no matter where we are physically or what circumstances we face in the outside world, our mind and spirit can remain sovereign. Inner freedom is not granted by laws, institutions, or any other human authority. It is born from awareness, nurtured through self-reflection, and sustained by choice. This idea may seem simple, but its impact on personal growth, healing, and transformation is enormous. When we look around the world, we often see people confined, not only in physical spaces like prisons or institutions, but in far more subtle and pervasive ways. Many are imprisoned by their own limiting beliefs, by past traumas, or by the expectations and judgments of others. These invisible walls are often more suffocating than physical ones. While someone might be walking freely on the outside, inside they may feel trapped, powerless, or afraid. Conversely, someone in a place of extreme restriction can, through inner work and healing, discover a deep sense of personal liberation. Inner freedom begins with the realization that we are not our thoughts and we are not our circumstances. Our identity is not defined by where we are or what we have experienced. Rather, it is shaped by how we choose to respond to life. Every day, we are given opportunities to reclaim our personal power by choosing a thought that supports our growth instead of reinforcing our fear. This is the essence of what teachers like Louise Hay have long reminded us. We create our reality through the thoughts we think and the beliefs we hold. To nurture inner freedom, we must first become aware of the inner dialogue that runs constantly in the background of our minds. Much of this dialogue has been shaped over time by family conditioning, societal programming, and unprocessed emotional wounds. It is easy to absorb messages like "I'm not good enough," "I always fail," or "people will never understand me." These messages can keep us locked in a mental cell. However, once we begin to examine them, to question their truth, and to consciously choose new affirming beliefs, we take the first steps toward mental and emotional liberation. Inner freedom also involves responsibility. It is not about blaming others for our pain or waiting for someone to rescue us. It is about looking within and asking, "What can I learn from this?" Or "How can I shift my perspective to find peace in this moment?" These questions are powerful because they bring us back into alignment with our own agency. We stop feeling like victims and start seeing ourselves as creators of our experience. There are countless examples of individuals who have found profound peace and transformation in the most restricted environments. People who, despite facing injustice, isolation, or immense suffering, chose to turn inward and connect with a higher sense of self. Their stories remind us that our external situation does not have to define our internal reality. In fact, some of the greatest breakthroughs and awakenings happen in times of extreme adversity. That is when the spirit is tested, and that is when it can rise. When we cultivate inner freedom, we become less reactive and more intentional. We stop allowing circumstances to dictate our emotional states. Instead, we learn to center ourselves, to breathe, and to choose our response. We learn the art of non-attachment, not as a denial of life, but as an embrace of its flow. We stop clinging to things or outcomes for our sense of security and learn to trust in our own capacity to adapt, to grow, and to remain whole even when life seems to fall apart. It's important to understand that inner freedom is not a destination. It is a practice. It is something we cultivate day by day through mindfulness, compassion, and forgiveness. We practice it when we stop ourselves from speaking words of anger. We practice it when we show kindness to ourselves after making a mistake. We practice it when we release resentment, not because the other person deserves it, but because we deserve peace. Ultimately, inner freedom is a gift we give ourselves. It cannot be taken away because it is not dependent on anything external. It is the quiet knowing that no matter what happens, we have the power to choose our thoughts, to open our hearts, and to live from a place of truth. In this way, we become not only free individuals, but also agents of healing and light in a world that so deeply needs both. The role of forgiveness in personal growth and emotional healing cannot be overstated. It is one of the most transformative practices we can engage in, yet it is often misunderstood. Many people think forgiveness means condoning harmful behavior or forgetting pain that was inflicted. In truth, forgiveness is not about the other person at all. It is about reclaiming our own peace. It is the conscious decision to stop carrying the burden of resentment, anger, or regret. When we forgive, we set ourselves free, not because someone else deserves it, but because we do. Forgiveness is a process, not an event. It begins with a willingness, a simple openness to the possibility that we don't have to suffer forever from the wounds we've received. Whether we feel betrayed, abandoned, judged, or hurt in some other way, holding on to the pain creates a prison within our own hearts. We may think that by holding on to anger we are maintaining power, but in truth we are giving power away. That energy, which could be used for healing and creativity, becomes locked in a cycle of bitterness and defensiveness. What often makes forgiveness difficult is the ego's need to be right or justified. The ego says, "They hurt me, and I won't let it go until they admit it." But spiritual wisdom teaches us that forgiveness does not require anyone else's participation. We can begin the journey toward peace whether or not the other person acknowledges the harm, apologizes, or even knows we are hurt. Forgiveness is not for them, it is for us. It's about removing the emotional chains we've worn for too long. At times, the person we most need to forgive is ourselves. This can be the hardest forgiveness of all. We may blame ourselves for past mistakes, for being naive, for not seeing the truth sooner, or for causing pain to others. But just as we extend compassion to others, we must also learn to extend it to ourselves. We must remember that we are always doing the best we can with the awareness and tools we have at the time. When we know better, we do better. Self-forgiveness is a doorway to wholeness because it allows us to move forward instead of reliving the past. Forgiveness also shifts our perception of others. When we begin to forgive, we may start to see that those who hurt us were often acting out of their own pain, fear, or ignorance. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it does help us understand it, and with understanding comes detachment. We no longer need to carry the emotional weight of someone else's wounds. We can say, "I release this not because it was okay, but because I choose peace over pain." Louise Hay often spoke of affirmations as tools for changing our inner world. Forgiveness is closely connected to this idea. When we repeat affirmations such as "I forgive and set myself free," or "I release all anger and embrace peace," we are not pretending everything is fine. We are choosing to rewrite the script. We are planting new seeds of thought that can, over time, replace the roots of old emotional pain. In the greater context of healing and transformation, forgiveness is a turning point. Without it, we remain stuck in cycles of suffering, repeating the same lessons again and again. With it, we open the door to freedom, love, and renewed possibility. Forgiveness does not erase the past, but it does allow us to rewrite the future. It's important to go gently in this process. Sometimes the pain is fresh or the betrayal feels too deep. That's okay. Forgiveness is not a race. It unfolds in its own time. What matters most is the intention, the quiet inner decision to move toward release rather than holding on. Even saying, "I am willing to forgive," is enough to begin shifting the energy. That willingness is like a light breaking through the darkness. Ultimately, forgiveness is an act of self-love. It is a way of telling ourselves that we are worthy of peace. We are worthy of letting go. We are worthy of starting over not because others deserve it, but because we deserve it. When we truly understand this, we realize that forgiveness isn't something we do once. It is something we live. It becomes a part of how we move through the world, with openness, with compassion, and with the quiet strength of someone who has reclaimed their inner freedom. one of the most transformative shifts we can make in life is learning to replace judgment with compassion. This shift is not only healing for our relationships with others, it also radically transforms our relationship with ourselves. Judgment is one of the mind's default settings. It categorizes, compares, and critiques. But while judgment may feel like a form of control or protection, in reality, it builds barriers between us and the deeper understanding, healing, and love that we truly seek. Judgment often comes from a place of fear. When we judge others, it is frequently because we don't understand them, or because something in their behavior touches a wound within us. We may see someone act in a way we don't approve of, and our minds rush to label them wrong, bad, ignorant, selfish. But what if instead of judging, we paused and asked ourselves, what might this person be going through? Or what pain might be behind this behavior? This doesn't mean we excuse harm or avoid setting boundaries, but it allows us to approach the situation with wisdom rather than reactivity. Compassion is not weakness, it is one of the highest forms of strength. Compassion says, I see your pain even if I don't understand your choices. It recognizes that every person is shaped by their past, their trauma, their beliefs, and that many people are operating from unhealed wounds. This includes us. When we remember that, we stop expecting perfection and begin allowing space for growth and learning. One of the reasons judgment is so pervasive is because we live in a culture that rewards it. Social media thrives on judgment. News cycles are filled with blame. Even everyday conversations are often centered around what someone else did wrong. But judgment rarely brings true resolution or healing. It separates. It keeps people locked in roles, the villain, the victim, the fool, and those roles become cages not just for the person being judged, but for us as well. When we choose compassion, we are choosing to see beyond the surface. We are choosing to believe in the possibility of transformation, not just for others, but for ourselves, and that belief is a powerful thing. Louise Hay taught that what we give out comes back to us. If we constantly offer judgment, we will feel judged in return. If we offer compassion, we begin to experience a world that feels safer, kinder, and more connected. Replacing judgment with compassion also helps us navigate our own healing. Often, the person we judge most harshly is ourselves. We replay old mistakes, harshly critique our choices, or tell ourselves we aren't good enough, smart enough, or deserving enough. This internal judgment is incredibly limiting. It keeps us small and ashamed. But when we bring compassion into that inner dialogue, everything changes. We begin to say, I did the best I could at the time, or I am learning and growing every day. These gentle, affirming thoughts are the soil in which healing takes root. It is important to understand that compassion does not mean being passive or allowing harmful behavior to continue. Boundaries are part of compassion. Saying, I see your pain, but I cannot allow you to hurt me, is a compassionate response. So is saying, I understand where you're coming from, but I need to walk away to protect my peace. Compassion is not about ignoring harm, it's about responding to it in a way that does not replicate it. We can begin practicing this shift in small, everyday moments. The next time someone cuts us off in traffic, instead of cursing them, we might say, I hope they're okay. When someone is rude or abrupt, we can remind ourselves they may be having a hard day. These moments may seem minor, but they are powerful because they train our minds to respond from love rather than fear. Over time, this becomes our new habit, and it brings with it a deep sense of peace and emotional freedom. Ultimately, replacing judgment with compassion is not about being nice. It is about being wise. It is about choosing connection over division, healing over punishment, and love over fear. When we live this way, we not only transform our own lives, we also become a source of healing in the world. In a society where judgment is loud and constant, compassion is a quiet revolution. And every time we choose it, we help build a world where understanding is possible, healing is honored, and every soul has the space to grow. Our thoughts are not just fleeting ideas that pass through our mind. They are powerful creative tools that shape our perception of reality, influence our emotions, and direct our actions. The idea that thoughts create our reality is not just a metaphor, it is a truth grounded in both psychology and spiritual wisdom. When we begin to understand the immense power of our thoughts, we start to realize that we are not helpless victims of circumstance. Instead, we are co-creators of our lives. Most people go through life thinking passively, without realizing that every thought they entertain sends a message to their subconscious mind. The subconscious does not judge or filter. It simply receives and acts. If we constantly think thoughts like, "I can't do this," "I'm not worthy," or "nothing ever works out for me," those thoughts start to reflect in our experiences. We begin to unconsciously act in ways that confirm those beliefs, attracting people and situations that reinforce them. But when we shift those thoughts, when we begin to say, "I am capable," "I am worthy of love," "I trust the process of life," we open the door to transformation. These new thoughts may not feel true at first. In fact, they often feel uncomfortable or fake because they challenge deeply held patterns. But the mind, like any muscle, strengthens with repetition. The more we practice these new thoughts, the more they become our new baseline. Louise Hay emphasized the use of affirmations as a practical way to begin this shift. An affirmation is a simple, positive statement spoken in the present tense, like, "I love and approve of myself," or "every day, in every way, I am getting better and better." These statements may seem simple, but their effect is profound. They serve as seeds that, when nurtured consistently, grow into new beliefs and eventually manifest as new behaviors and outcomes. It's important to understand that our outer world reflects our inner world. If we want to change what's happening around us, we must start by examining what's happening within us. This doesn't mean we blame ourselves for everything in our lives, but it does mean we recognize our participation in creating our reality. We begin to take responsibility, not out of guilt, but out of empowerment. There is also a significant emotional component to this. Our thoughts trigger emotions, and our emotions often guide our decisions. If we constantly think fearful thoughts, we will feel anxiety, and that anxiety will influence how we respond to life. We might avoid opportunities, sabotage relationships, or become overly defensive. But when we think thoughts rooted in trust, hope, and love, our emotions shift. And so does our behavior. We become more open, more resilient, more aligned with our true potential. This process of thought transformation does not happen overnight. Like tending a garden, it requires consistency and care. We begin by becoming aware of our negative thought patterns, noticing them without judgment, and gently choosing a better thought. For example, if we catch ourselves thinking, "I always mess things up," we might pause and say, "That was the old story. I am learning and growing every day." These small changes are incredibly powerful, especially when practiced over time. There is also immense healing in becoming mindful of the language we use. Words have energy. The way we speak to ourselves matters deeply. When we use kind, affirming, and loving language toward ourselves, we build self-esteem and emotional resilience. We start to believe in our ability to heal, to change, and to create the life we truly want. It's also helpful to visualize thoughts as tools, like instruments we can pick up to either build or destroy. Just as a carpenter selects the right tool for the job, we too must be conscious of which thoughts we allow to take root in our mind. Are we using tools that build us up or tear us down? Are we choosing thoughts that bring us peace or ones that prolong our suffering? In the end, understanding the power of our thoughts is one of the most liberating realizations we can have. It reminds us that no matter what has happened in the past, we can begin again, right now, with a new thought. As Louise Hay often said, the point of power is always in the present moment. That means we have the ability, right now, to begin shaping a better life by choosing thoughts that align with our highest good. And when we change our thinking, we change everything. Acceptance is one of the most profound and misunderstood concepts in the journey of healing. Often confused with resignation or passivity, true acceptance is actually a powerful and active state of being. It is the moment when we stop fighting with reality and begin to allow ourselves to be present with what is, rather than what we wish was. In doing so, we create space for transformation. Acceptance doesn't mean we approve of everything that has happened or that we want things to remain the same. It simply means we are no longer denying the truth of our experience. In a world that constantly pushes us to resist, fix, and control, acceptance becomes a revolutionary act. Many people live in a state of constant internal struggle. They resist their bodies, their emotions, their past, and even their current circumstances. This resistance creates stress, tension, and emotional fatigue. We tell ourselves things like, "This shouldn't be happening," or "I can't believe they did that," or "I'll never get over this." These thoughts create inner friction that keeps us stuck in pain. Acceptance, by contrast, is the first step toward peace. When we say, "This is what is happening right now," we are not giving up. We are grounding ourselves in the truth of the moment. This allows us to respond to life consciously rather than react unconsciously. We are no longer pushing against reality, we are working with it. In this state, we find clarity, strength, and wisdom that were previously inaccessible. Louise Hay often taught that what we resist persists. This is particularly true when it comes to our emotions. When we resist sadness, it lingers. When we suppress anger, it festers. But when we allow ourselves to feel what we are feeling, without judgment or fear, those emotions move through us and begin to release. Acceptance opens the door to this kind of emotional honesty. It says, "I'm allowed to feel this," and in doing so, gives permission for healing to begin. Accepting ourselves is a vital part of this journey. Many of us carry deep self-judgments. We criticize our appearance, our decisions, our perceived failures. We compare ourselves to others and find ourselves lacking. But true healing cannot happen in an environment of self-rejection. We must be willing to look at ourselves honestly and lovingly, even at the parts we wish were different. Self-acceptance is not about denying the desire to grow. It is about creating a safe and compassionate space within which that growth can happen. In this space of self-acceptance, we begin to realize that our worth is not conditional. It is not based on how productive we are, how perfect we look, or how flawlessly we perform. Our worth is intrinsic. We are enough just as we are, even as we strive to become more. This understanding allows us to let go of the inner war and step into a more peaceful and empowering relationship with ourselves. Acceptance also plays a critical role in forgiving others. Sometimes we hold on to resentment because we cannot accept what someone did. We replay the moment in our minds, insisting it should not have happened, and maybe it shouldn't have, but the truth is, it did happen. And by accepting that reality, not condoning it but acknowledging it, we begin to free ourselves from the grip of the past. We start to make space for peace. It's important to remember that acceptance does not mean stagnation. In fact, it is the foundation for meaningful change. When we fully accept what is, we are better equipped to take empowered action. Denial distorts reality. Acceptance clarifies it. Only by seeing things as they truly are can we make wise decisions about how to move forward. Practicing acceptance is a daily commitment. It means being present with ourselves, especially in difficult moments. It means saying, "This is how I feel right now," or "This is the situation I'm in," and offering ourselves compassion instead of condemnation. It's a practice of softness, of surrendering the need to control every outcome and allowing life to unfold with greater ease. Ultimately, acceptance is not an end point. It is a way of being. It is a lens through which we can meet life with more grace, understanding, and love. In accepting what is, we open the door to what can be. And in that openness, we find the freedom to heal, to grow, and to live with greater authenticity and peace. Personal responsibility is a cornerstone of true emotional and spiritual freedom. It means acknowledging that, while we may not control everything that happens to us, we always have control over how we respond. This concept can be both liberating and confronting. On one hand, it empowers us to create meaningful change in our lives. On the other, it requires us to look within honestly, humbly, and without excuses. Many people mistakenly associate responsibility with blame. They hear, "Take responsibility for your life," and feel accused or shamed. But personal responsibility is not about blaming ourselves for every hardship or mistake. Rather, it is the recognition that we are the authors of our internal world. Our thoughts, beliefs, choices, and reactions are ours to manage, and this is where our true power lies. Louise Hay taught that everything in our lives begins with a thought. If we want to transform our outer reality, we must start by examining our inner dialogue. Personal responsibility means becoming conscious of our thoughts, questioning where they come from, and choosing those that serve our growth rather than our pain. This doesn't mean denying our challenges. It means approaching them with the awareness that we can either remain stuck in blame or move forward with intention. Owning our part in our experience allows us to move from victimhood to empowerment. When we constantly point fingers at our upbringing, partners, employers, or society, we give our power away. We wait for others to change so we can feel better. But when we take personal responsibility, we reclaim that power. We realize that, regardless of what others do or don't do, we have the ability to shape our emotional response and take steps toward healing. This mindset is especially important in situations where we have been hurt. It's natural to feel anger or betrayal when someone wrongs us, and those feelings are valid, but staying stuck in them often leaves us feeling powerless. Personal responsibility asks, what can I do to reclaim my peace? It may mean setting a boundary, seeking support, or working through our emotions in a healthy way. It may also mean choosing forgiveness, not because the other person deserves it, but because we deserve to be free. Taking responsibility also involves being honest about our own behavior. Where are we contributing to dysfunction in our relationships? What habits or patterns are keeping us from living the life we want? This kind of self-inquiry isn't always easy, but it is essential. It's not about judging ourselves harshly, it's about understanding ourselves deeply. When we become aware of our patterns, we can change them. And with change comes growth. It's important to note that personal responsibility is not the same as self-reliance to the point of isolation. We all need help sometimes. Taking responsibility doesn't mean doing everything alone or never feeling overwhelmed. It means recognizing when we need support and having the courage to seek it. It means asking for help not from a place of weakness, but from a place of wisdom. There is also a deep spiritual element to this principle. When we take responsibility for our inner life, we align ourselves with the flow of healing and transformation. We stop seeing ourselves as passive recipients of fate and start seeing ourselves as co-creators. Life is no longer something that simply happens to us. It becomes something we actively engage with. We begin to see every challenge as an opportunity to learn, every obstacle as a chance to strengthen our resilience. Louise Hay often reminded us that the point of power is always in the present moment. That means no matter what has happened before, no matter how much we've struggled or strayed, we can choose right now to respond differently. We can take responsibility for how we show up today, and in doing so, we take the first step toward building a life rooted in authenticity, peace, and purpose. Ultimately, personal responsibility is not a burden. It is a gift. It is the key that unlocks the door to freedom. It allows us to stop waiting for others to change and instead begin the transformation within ourselves. It gives us the power to shape our own narrative, to take ownership of our healing, and to create a life that reflects who we truly are. And from this place of empowered awareness, we begin to live not by default, but by design,